and welcome. Going to talk about sunspots and the magnetic reversal, and possibly try and figure out, or come up with some theories as to why the climate is behaving in the way it is, and try and link it in with the sunspots and the magnetic reversal. But more importantly, what is causing the two to occur? I mean, we're looking at the last 3 solar cycles, and we can see quite clearly that they're dropping off every cycle by about 50 sunspots. If this continues, it doesn't take a genius to work out that the sunspots are going to bottom out. This month, we've been experiencing remarkably low amounts of sunspots. On some days this month, we've had none. Other channels have also mentioned this. But what is behind, the reduction in solar cycles from 1985 to 2020, or at least to 2016? And is it linked to the magnetic reversal? One thing we have to bear in mind here is that the magnetic reversal first started to migrate over 100 years ago. So at first, it doesn't look like there is anything connected between low sunspots and the magnetic reversal taking place now on the Earth. So what we're looking at here when we chart sunspots like this is at ultra low and at ultra slow frequency, and we can see that the frequency is following a pattern and it's petering out. Now, we know that the sun regulates the climate on the Earth, and we also have concluded through looking at 400-year sunspots that when we have a low amount of solar activity with regards to sunspots, we also have low temperatures. Now, this isn't working out too good now for your global warmists that are blaming it on CO2, because we're seeing CO2 increase off the chart still, yet global temperatures are reducing. Now, I think it's probably best to pull up the 400-year chart so we can probably have a look with regards to sunspots and climate as to what has been going on. So we'll do that. So, here's 400 years history of sunspots, and I've put a few things on here. I've marked the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and the reason why I did that is because you can see there's been an increase from the 1700s to 1760, which was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and you will note that there is an increase in 2 things. First of all, from 1700s to the 1760s, there's an increase in sunspots, and not only that, from that period of time, from the 1700s to 1760s, we've brought ourselves out of the Maunder minimum, which was described as the Little Ice Age. I'm pretty sure that a majority of you followers are aware of the Maunder minimum. It also shows us a period of time around the 1800s regarding the Dalton minimum, which was another period of time where we experienced low temperatures. So we've got 2 regions in time where sunspots were low, and at the same time we had lower temperatures. The reason why I put the Industrial Revolution on there is because from that period of time we were supposed to have been chucking more CO2 into the atmosphere. So this clearly proves that the temperature is not regulated by the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, so those global warmists have got it wrong quite clearly, and recent charts of CO2 and temperature quite easily show that. I mean, it's a big thing, that in itself, because how much have these lobbyists for global warming changed industry globally with regards to, more greener and, more greener vehicles, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. To be honest, it's not a bad idea to keep, your waste under control with regards to anything that you emit into the atmosphere. So, for that reason, it's a good thing, but to, solely blame it on global warming as a direct result of pumping more CO2 into the atmosphere is ludicrous. It's an inaccurate statement, and, obviously, governments have exploited that through taxes. So, we can see the correlation quite clearly with sunspots increasing and decreasing, a temperature increase in favour of more sunspots, a temperature decrease in favour of lower temperatures. So, that's the point of clearing this up. The thing is about this graph is it only goes up to 2000, so I want to pull up another graph so we can see what's been happening in the recent solar cycle from that point in time. So this chart's a little bit better because it takes us beyond the point in time that we're at the moment, and it clearly shows in this region solar cycle 24, which is what we're in at the moment, and we're just coming out of the peak of solar cycle 24, so we're leaving the solar maximum at this point. But what you will see is those 3 solar cycles where it drops off. Now, around 1960, we had the major amount of sunspots, but if we just go back on this chart to as early as we can, around 1870, we can see that there was very low amount of sunspots. But not only that, around the 1700s was when we was in the Maunder minimum, which was described as the mini ice age. So again, just rebutting that when we have a low amount of sunspots, we have low temperatures. If we look at the last 3 solar cycles, we can see a dramatic drop off. So we know from studying the 400-year solar cycle, that chart that I just showed you, that when these sunspots drop off, temperatures follow. So what I wanted to do is just have a little look then over 11,000 years of sunspots. So we're looking at 11,000 years of sunspots, and what we can see is around 4000 BC closely matches the period of time that we're at right now on this chart. But if we look back just a little bit further, I know this chart only goes back to 10,000 BC, just to put things in perspective. If we went back to 11,700 years, we'd be at the end of a glacial period. Now, I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you, is that we are actually currently in an ice age right now. A lot of people get confused with, glacial periods and ice ages. So we are in fact actually in an ice age. So when people are talking about the fact we could be going into an ice age, it's a little bit inaccurate, because we are, according to the hundreds of thousands of years records taken by core samples, still in an ice age. We are in an interglacial period, which is due to come to an end. And what I'm saying here is that, again, we're looking at a very ultra low frequency and a long sine wave. So what seems to be common in our universe is these cycles, and even though we experience a magnetic reversal on the sun's surface every year, scientists still don't know what the mechanisms are behind that. They'll talk about fluid dynamics and flows and this, that and the other, but they still don't know what is behind the actual cycles of the magnetic reversals that take place on the sun. So, they're going to know even less with regards to what causes and triggers magnetic reversals on the Earth. The thing is that these things are not very easy to spot and find. But, if we just outrule all the technical data that we've gathered over all these years and just look at something very simple, such as the effects of more sunspots and less sunspots with regards to how it affects our Earth, then we can just simply say that the sun regulates the climate on the Earth, and there is something else, therefore, that regulates the sun. And obviously the larger body in this, for instance, is the one which is regulating the smaller body. So it would make common sense to me to look for something larger than our sun that could possibly be affecting our sun with regards to its regular magnetic reversals of around 11 years or so. That gives us these solar cycles, and then try and find out what has changed about that anomaly that regulates our sun, and then we can begin to understand what is going on. Because I do feel that somewhere there is a link between the magnetic pole migration, even though the recent sunspots don't show that in the last 3 or 4 solar cycles of the ones that go back to the 1900s when the magnetic pole started to reverse. But, you know, what I'm thinking more along the lines of is what some of you may have heard of, the superwave theory, and that waves emanate from the centre of our galaxy, or the super bulge, or the black hole, that has been described at the centre of our galaxy that we rotate around. That is a massive body that consumes suns far greater in size than our own, and when it does so, emits radiation out in waves that emanate across the spiral arms of our galaxy until it reaches the destination of where our solar system lies. And I believe it's those waves of energy that are possibly responsible for, the regular magnetic reversal on the sun, which happens a lot more frequently than what it does on the Earth. But there is something also possibly linked between that and the Earth's magnetic reversal that takes place, on average, apart from the last time, around 350,000 years ago. So that's more particularly the interested field that I'm interested in. Is not just the fact that I'm aware of the magnetic pole reversal and the implications that has for life on this planet with regard to the reduction of the magnetosphere and other physical effects that has. I mean, we have drawn a conclusion. We know that the core of the Earth must be heating up, and we have done experiments where we heat magnetic material up, and we find that once it gets to a certain temperature, the magnetic ability of that material to hold that strength of its magnetism depletes very quickly. So we can conclude that the magnetic anomaly that is taking place right now with the pole migrating is possibly caused through an internal heat in the core. Not only that, is that we've also got other signs of a heated core on this planet, and that is the increase in volcanism and the increase in also earthquakes, subtly suggesting that there could be almost the beginning signs of a tectonic displacement. And that theory, was suggested by, I believe, even Einstein. So, that's where we are with regards to this. It's not just, talking about the effects of these anomalies that we're currently facing at the moment. The other aspect of this is warning people, because people are dying as a result of this. And it's not directly related to magnetic pole shift, but it's the causes of the magnetic pole shift, the heating of the core, that are changing, the way people conduct their activities on this planet. And if we just look over in the eastern countries, we know that people are losing their lives. Hundreds of thousands of farmers are losing their lives because of the changing climate, and they're trying to get ahead of the game by using genetically modified crop seeds. But the problem is we're in such a transition phase in this climate shift, is that it's sporadic. So you might buy tailored designed crop seeds that suit a better climate, with regards to it being less droughted, or even more dry climates. But the point here I'm trying to raise is that the climate is shifting so sporadically that they're getting it wrong, and probably would have been better off with the original crop seeds, the ones that had went through hundreds of thousands of years of evolution to cope with a good all-round climate. And as a result, they remortgage their farms. More crop failures happen. They can't afford to pay back the monies that they've borrowed on their farms, that they've secured on the loan, and they end up committing suicide because they've lost something that was possibly in their families for many generations. So it's putting out on this channel the awareness, and on the website, not just of the changing circumstances with regards to the magnetic pole, but it's also the knock-on effects that that has. And it's not just humans that are going through it. I mean, we're quite fortunate to be at the top of the food chain. Other species, not so fortunate, are, through a result of the magnetic pole migrating, finding themselves struggling to navigate on the planet as the poles and the magnetosphere weakens, and their ability to find their spawning grounds with regards to using that magnetite in their brain as a form of direction heading and tracking for them. So I'll leave it here, guys. I didn't really want the video to run on that long. I did want to put a bit more detail in there, and what I wanted to do is just give you my theory on as to what is probably regulating not just sunspots, but also in some way the changes that are taking place on this Earth with regards to the pole shift. And I hope I've given you a little bit more insight and perhaps some interesting information. But more importantly, we're trying to inform people of what is taking place real time right now. And that's the reason why I put the link down there for people to support the channel. Who knows who comes across this information might change their lives. Just a small thing such as this could change their lives. You never know. We do get thousands of views in Pakistan every month. Who knows, we might influence one of those people not to take one of these designed crop seeds, stick with the originals. And although you possibly are not going to get the larger yields if it works out for you with those crop seeds, but if things do sporadically change, at least you're not going to end up with nothing at the end of that season for you. I would certainly suggest not trying to be a little bit more greedier, or trying to maximize your profits, but just at this period of time stick with something that you can cope with and manage with, and at least that is something better than nothing at the end of the day. So guys, I'll put the link down there. It's great that at least one or two people every video support it in some form of way. If nothing else, it's encouragement for me to continue doing it. And I'll say no more other than guys, I'll catch up with you sometime over the weekend, and you enjoy the rest of the week. And as always, bye for now.